Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Larry Mazza.
Get us out of the car. They start frisking us, looking for stuff. All they got was our beepers. Remember the old days? You had beepers. Yeah, you could. You remember the yeah. There was no cell phones, so all we had was
beepers. I used to have a beeper. I used to have one.
Yeah, they took all our beepers, but we had everything on code, so they really couldn't get anything from it. But it was the funny thing was one of them took Greg to the other side of the car. Like he went away from me and Jimmy. Me and Jimmy on the car. They took him to the other side of the car, and they were talking. But you don't think anything. You just, again, I'm just thinking, this guy is smooth. He's going to talk us out of this, whatever. And they had to let us go. We had nothing on us. Now, if we had vests and guns, we would have been arrested because the task force or the DA put a thing out, start rousting these guys. If you see them in the street, pull them over. If they got guns, lock them up, stuff like that. So they had to let us go. We went on downtown. We met our captain at the time, Chucky Russo. And, we told him what just happened, but it was counted. But these were the things, information I had. I knew the phone booth that he used. There was other things. I was actually taking him to meetings, and I remember telling, people around us and Jimmy and them later on, I said, he took me everywhere. There was nobody that I couldn't meet, except when we met at the hospital. We went into the cafeteria, and he made me wait in the hallway outside. So me and Jimmy, there's on doors, there's like little windows, so you see somebody coming and going, so you don't bang into them.
Yeah.
So we peeked in, and we saw them walking that way. We never saw their faces, but I knew they weren't wise guys, the way they were dressed. Full blue, cheap blue suits, not sharp, no, really nice. And it's funny because all these years later, I still can picture that scene, and I think I know who two of the three were. One was the main target that they went after, but I could never testify to that or swear to it because I seen him from the back. They just rip a hole in you. And the other one, only because he was very robotic when I met him later on, and he had light hair. I just remember that. Actually, I can say his name. He's the first one that gave up to Vecchio. Chris Fabo was an FBI agent, and he was the first one that really believed that the Vecchio was bad because at the time
Vecchio's still around, right?
Yeah, he's still alive, but he banged the desk and said, "We're going to win this thing." After we got Nicky Black, so they sent him, I heard, to Alaska. Literally sent to Alaska to work because he was the first one to give up one of his own. Yeah, but I guess I think he's still alive. I think it will be newsworthy when he dies, and I think a lot more documentation will come out when he dies. And we may even know where Big Greg's money is when he dies, because nobody can figure it out. How the man that made all that money, Greg. The family is destitute. They don't have anything. Some of the daughters married and they had good husbands that are making a living, whatever. But like his kids,
But he made millions of dollars in the street and on.
I told you, he once told me if he piled his money up, climbed to the top and jumped off, he'd die. So that's a lot of money, But yeah, they couldn't find it. Now, there's a lot of talk about at the end where he had dementia from the AIDS. He might have never told anybody where his number one safe is. He might not have ever told anybody. He might just sneak off. It could be with one of his other wives. He had that Lily.
He had three, didn't he?
Yeah.
Three different families.
Yeah, he had that Israeli beauty that was wealthy on her own. So she had a Manhattan apartment and she had a Vegas place. That could have been the main stash. It's out of the way, and he just never told anybody. I knew of hiding places in his house, but, there was never, tremendous money. There might have been a spot with 100,000, another spot with 30,000, money on hand, but never, not the bulk of it, not the meat and potatoes. Talking about that 7, 8, 10, 12 million, 15. They estimated 25 million. There's 20 to 25 million missing. Now
could be in the walls. Could be in the walls of the house.
that's a little too close. I think somebody like Linda would have known being in the house. I think he had somewhere, and the other thing is possibly if the Vecchio truly was his partner, like people say, they were like partners. Maybe he has it in a offshore bank account, and he's living the big life. He can't live too big because then they probably zero in on that. But a carefree life, to know you could ride your motorcycle every day, all day long. You could go to the finest restaurants. I mean, incognito.
Have no cares.
No cares. Your mortgage will be paid every month. So, again, I don't know that for a fact, but, you got to speculate, and that's not a bad possibility.
What about Linda? Do you think Linda knew?
Where the money was?
No, about the FBI and the
Well,
whole situation.
it's coming out that she did. It's coming out that she did. Like she's maybe the only person that knew, because he confided in her in a lot. And the one thing I'm disappointed in, she didn't confide in me.
She let you get sucked into the whole situation.
Yeah, but if you truly, the things you said, like a little mosquito in here, the love of your life, I want to run away with you, all this stuff, I can't live without you. I mean, again, it's not like this went on for 6 months. It went on for almost 10 years. So I had to take to heart. She should have warned me about that. She should have let me know somehow. You could have laid it out when I was younger and naive, that he's like, he called himself James Bond later on. He's a James Bond type of guy. He deals with the government. He deals with the wise guys, at least somehow. But then again, his own son didn't know. Greg Jr. didn't even know. So.
And that's crazy. And even on his deathbed, he didn't throw nobody a bone. He let everyone go down.
The only one he helped, and again, this shows you how money hungry he was. He got some money from the Persicos to save Alley Boy. And it was they said they would take care of Linda forever. They didn't. And I think he thought that would save his legend or his status, or he would die with honor by saving Alley Boy. But most people are not going to honor him or look at it that way, because he could have saved Greg Jr., who was in the hole rotting away, literally in a hole for 13, 14 years. He could have, if not saved me and Jimmy, he could have downplayed our roles. He could have, when I was trying to downplay it, they were telling me, we know the day a guy gets made, we knew the next day when you and Jimmy were good fellas. They told us that. And I later found out that Greg is the one that tells them anytime he sees the list come around, who's on that list. He tells the feds. So they know the next day. And Greg told me that too. He goes, you think they don't know? The day you get straightened out, they know. And I'm saying,
yeah, forget going around and telling everybody you're made. Greg's telling them for you, right?
Exactly. So he could have said all they did was drive me. They never shot anybody. He could have done something to downplay, and they probably would have gave him that bone. I think. But he didn't even try. As a matter of fact,
who do you know who he was blaming the murders on?
That's what he did. He blamed the whole war on himself, me, and Jimmy. That made it look more realistic. If he just came in, I guess, and said it was all him, it was just me. But I would have said it was him, me, and Carmine Persico. We did it.
Yeah.
That would be pretty believable. But there was no way this old frail-looking guy did it all by himself. So he had to bring somebody down with him, and it was me and Jimmy.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. That's why I said I'll never ever not be able to look in the mirror. I will never ever be disgusted with myself. I'm disgusted that I was able to get sucked into that treacherous, backstabbing, fraudulent, hypocritical life. Okay, but that was my fault, nobody else's. I did it, and
I mean, what do you think of the life now? Without the threat of violence, what is there, right?
Well, you could still have a group of somewhat honorable guys that could do some business together, that could still be looked up to as men's men. I have a little bit of that in the businesses I have now in my life. A lot of them look to me. I have an older guy that's around our group now that I look to as a guy to talk to still, and he's from that life. I mentioned them tonight. I don't want to, and we're doing good things. Where I have a gym, that we have a nice little bar in Palm Beach that we had a tremendous Super Bowl party. It was a great day. We have another place. It's a speakeasy where I'm going to start doing some shows out of, like I did at the team. I did it another show at a nightclub in Texas. So we're going to do a show like that at our own place, and I might be bringing in others every month or every 2 months to interview, to have a talk, and lead that, let them tell their life stories and things like that. And it won't be just wise guys. There's going to be FBI agents. One that walked into my supper club when I had it, 10 years ago, and I had to call him outside. I said, "You know who I am?" And he's looking. I said, "Yeah, you look familiar." I said, "Larry Mazza." And he says, "Oh my God." And he was on the case because he told me. I said, "How do you know all these guys from my neighborhood?" He says, "Well, I arrested a lot of them." I said, "Outside for a minute. Let's go outside." Took him outside. But you know what? We became friends. He's a nice. He hates the FBI. He's ashamed of himself for being part of it. He went on to become a minister. I meet him maybe once every couple of months for, we'll go to a pizza joint, have some pizza, him and his wife and my wife. But he looks up to me. He has a lot of respect for me, and that I did the turnaround, and I'm living a good life. I'm no angel. I never will be an angel. It's not the way I march. Everybody marches to their own beat. I always have a little bad boy in me. I always, but
we always do, right?
Yeah, but when you are who you are, that's okay. When you're in that life, you're not who you are. You are who the boss wants you to be.
Yeah.
So I've earned respect. I still get it. I respect people. I don't disrespect anybody. I got to tell you a funny story. I'm driving through Cocoa Village today, okay? And I stop. I want to park. You know how you stop, you put your blinker on, and there's cars behind me. This moron pulls right up behind me, and he won't back up and let me park. So I'm being nice at first. I says, "Look," it says, "let me park and you go around me." So, "Well, you cut me off." I said, "I didn't cut you off. I'm going for a parking space. Just let me park. It'll take 30 seconds and you can move on." He starts yelling and screaming.